Hey guys, what's up? It's Dark World here. Doing a video with a friend here today on the internet. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yo, y'all already know it is. It's Noah, collaborating with Dark. Very excited today.
Yep.
Got a great topic.
We both like Demon Slayer, okay? And Null, he does Demon Slayer Blue Lock content. I'll leave a pinned comment or a link to his channel in the description. But today we're gonna be talking about one of our favorites, Hashira's Sanemi, and we want to place him in each of the fights in the Infinity Castle and see how he would perform in each of them. So what we're gonna do for the video is we're gonna replace him with the either strongest character on a team or the only person to replace him with in these fights to actually battle the Upper Moons. And we're gonna go in order of the Upper Moons. So we're gonna start with Zenitsu versus Kaigaku. He's going to replace Zenitsu. He's going to replace Obanai in the fight against Nakame. He's going to replace Giyu against Akaza. And he's also going to replace Shinobu in the final fight in a 1v1 against Doma. So some rules we have for the video. Sanemi replacing these characters. He's going to have his teammates and everything's going to play out how it did in canon. So like there's no mark for Zenitsu in the fight against Kaigaku. So he's not going to get the mark there. Anything else you want to add before we start?
So when we get further into it, when we get to Akaza and characters like that, he will be having his mark. Because I heard you mention that he wouldn't have his Demon Slayer mark for the Kaigaku fight. I was making sure people understood that. That didn't mean he wouldn't have his mark at all.
Yep.
Just certain fights with certain characters he's replacing, he'll be able to have his mark.
Yeah, so like Giyu gets the mark, so we're gonna give him the mark in that fight, but like the other ones, we might make an exception for Doma. We'll see when we get there. But other than that, we're just gonna hop into it with Sanemi versus Kaigaku. You want to start us off here on Sanemi versus Kaigaku and how you think this fight's gonna go?
Honestly, I think it's very clear. But to break it down and explain it to y'all, Sanemi versus Kaigaku is really one-sided. Muichiro takes on and out Gyoko, which is Upper Moon 5, a rank above Upper Moon 6. And as far as we are concerned, after that point, Sanemi is able to outplay a way stronger Muichiro in Infinity Castle in his base form. So Muichiro already soloing a Upper Moon that is above Upper Moon 6, and Sanemi now being levels above that Muichiro, I think you kind of get what I'm saying. Sanemi would absolutely decimate Kaigaku.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Jutaro,
It's like it's
matter.
not even a contest. Like there's no way we could even make this a fair fight in any way, any sense of the word. Like keep in mind, Muichiro Perception Blitz Upper 5, then he gets stronger, and then base Sanemi is stronger than that character by like a pretty good bit. And like some people say that Sanemi is just stronger because of experience. Even though Kokushibo outspeeds Muichiro badly is with his moon breathing, and then Sanemi just contests that pretty easily. I think there's a pretty big speed gap. I think it's pretty clear that experience isn't the only thing, getting Sanemi over marked Muichiro. If you do think that, I'm gonna dap you up right there. You got that. This video may not be for you. So yeah, Sanemi pretty much just blitzes and annihilates. There's really nothing else to be said. So we're just going to move on to Sanemi replacing Obanai with Mitsuri as support versus Nakame. If you want to start us off with this.
All right, so for this one in particular, we are going back to the Kokushibo fight, just like last time. Sanemi in the Kokushibo fight does have scaling to Mark Yome, and our reasoning for this is the fact that Mark Yome was comboing with Sanemi, and for him to be able to do this, they have to be relative in combat speed to some sort. Even if you want to take away Sanemi's mark, he'd still be on the same level as base Gyome, or relative with him with base Gyome. If you take away both of their marks, base Gyome also would be way above Nakame.
Yeah,
if we're talking about
and like keep in mind when they do this training, it's in the Hashira training when they're in base. You know what I mean? So they're training together in base. And what Null's trying to say is, if Sanemi was significantly slower to like such a vast magnitude below Gyome, it wouldn't even make sense for Gyome to train with him and do like combo attacks, because there'd just be no point. If he's gonna slow down his like attack speed and stuff, it doesn't really make sense for Sanemi to support him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think me and Null both kind of agree that base Obanai alone is inches away from decapitating Nakame. Gyome's stronger than Obanai. Obviously, he's the strongest Hashira. That's probably enough to just get him over Nakame, but I mean, like, there is a worst case scenario. If you really think that Sanemi can't do it, they cannot figure out how to get past Nakame. They're completely stomped. Marichi blood.
Yep, the Marichi blood does in fact affect Kokoshibo and makes it to the point where Sanemi is able to press him. So let's just say hypothetically he did this to Nakame. The banjo's not getting played, guys. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. She's going to be hitting her teammates.
Yeah, and so like a serious Koku just pretty much blitzes Sanemi or massively outpaces him, and then Sanemi's just like fighting relative with him while he's drunk on Marichi blood. So if Sanemi just like cuts his arm open because he has no other way to, you know, behead Nakame, which he does in character, by the way. He did this against Tanjiro and Nezuko just to mess with them. So if him and Mitsuri are stumped and cannot defeat Nakame, I could definitely see him doing something like this just to nerf Nakame. And I don't know anyone on planet Earth that thinks, blood nerfed Nakame is getting it over on Sanemi and Mitsuri.
Yeah, no, that's insane.
Yeah, so we're just going to move on from that. Sanemi clears this round pretty easily as well, even in base. Then we get to Sanemi and Tanjiro versus Akaza. And see, this is pretty easily the best matchup for Sanemi, because no matter how you interpret it, it's pretty much always a W for Sanemi because he has Tanjiro on his side.
Yeah, so guys, as we're aware, even in the Hashira training arc, Sanemi is able to press base Giyu. Even if you want to say base Giyu and Sanemi are around the same level, with See-Through Road Tanjiro, it would just be way too much for Akaza in general. Especially if you think that Sanemi is faster than Giyu, or just above Giyu in general. Akaza's not in a good scenario. Like Dark said, even in the worst case scenario, Tanjiro's still there to take him out, even if Sanemi can't finish the job.
Yeah, so even if you think that Giyu and Sanemi are perfectly equal, he would perform exactly the same as Giyu. Tanjiro's just eventually going to unlock See-Through World and take out Akaza. Honestly, I think there's a lot of assertions you can make about Sanemi that just puts him above someone like Giyu. I mean, even in the spar, we see Giyu's on the back foot against him, but even if you do just say, at his absolute worst, he's Giyu level, that's still just a W for Sanemi and Tanjiro here. And, I honestly think Mark Sanemi alone is probably just taking out Akaza, especially if the Marichi blood works. Now, there is like a little bit of contention with this, because if the Marichi blood comes out, is it even going to work on Akaza? Because it's like he has magnetized attacks. But it's also fair to point out, like, something like alcohol in the real world can, deter your visual motor skills, which is, something that could affect Akaza. Even though he has magnetized punches, if he can't get the timing right, you know what I mean? Then Sanemi's just going to have an advantage on him. And if he's just close to Mark Giyu, at his worst, right, he's bare minimum Mark Giyu level with his mark. I don't see how he doesn't take out Akaza. Mark Giyu alone was already, trading blows with Akaza, cutting his neck and stuff. So Akaza's just slightly nerfed. Or if you just think Sanemi's even better than Giyu, Sanemi probably just takes him out by himself. If not, like I said, worst case scenario, he just gets taken out by Tanjiro and they just survive, and they clear this round as well. For our final round here, we have Sanemi versus Doma, and he's taking the place of Shinobu, so no support, no backup here, and this is by far the strongest opponent he's going to be facing. So the first thing, when me and Noel were like talking about the video, we're like, okay, is Sanemi going to be able to get the mark? And I know I said in the beginning that if the characters don't get the mark, we're not going to do it, but Shinobu had no way of getting the mark since she did not train to actually try to unlock it. She skipped the Hashira training to do all the poison research or whatever, right? So we think it would just be more interesting to put up Mark Sanemi against Doma. Like, is there anyone out there that really thinks base Sanemi is beating Doma? Realistically, I don't think that's really an interesting fight to talk about for anyone. If we allow him to get the mark, would he actually be able to get it? Because we know Doma cools the air. So the thing is, the mark is very heavily correlated to total concentration breathing. Back all the way in Volume 1, right? In Volume 1, like Chapter 5, I believe the girl's name is Makomo or something like that. One of the students of Urokodaki It's just telling us about total concentration breathing. And she's telling us about how your body gets hot and strong. It increases your blood flow, makes your temperature go up, right? All these things. And then we see when Mitsuri's actually getting the mark, she says specifically that she needs to increase her heart rate and get faster and stronger, pretty much directly implying that she's just using a higher level of total concentration breathing. Then when we get Muichiro's explanation, Muichiro just flat out says he thinks his heart rate was more than like 200 beats per minute and his body felt hot, like it was burning. That once again lines up with our statements about how total concentration breathing works. So with both Mitsuri and Muichiro pretty much just confirming they're at the highest level of what we know total concentration breathing does, that just means total concentration breathing is linked to getting the mark, and just having a higher level of it can allow a character to get the mark. So it kind of comes down to, will Sanemi be able to heat up his body faster or more efficiently than Doma can like cool the air around him to negate the mark? And me and Null kind of think he would be able to. Because number one, he's one of the strongest Demon Slayers of all time, or Hashira of all time, bar none. And he's stated in the fan book to be one of the most skilled. I think we have a pretty good baseline that he's one of the most effective breathing users of all time. And you know, if the mark correlates to breathing mastery, Sanemi should probably be able to overcome this and still unlock the mark. And it's not like Shinobu, even with this cold air, couldn't do anything against Doma. Like, even after Doma notes that she, you know, was breathing in the cold air and feeling its effects, she's still just using breathing forms. So if it can't even like stop you from using breathing forms, I don't really see this being strong enough to outright negate the mark. That kind of leads us into the next part about Doma scaling, and narratively why we think he should be a tier above Akaza, if you want to go into that.
Oh yeah. So, if you guys can remember the slight intermission arc with the Infinity Castle meetup with all the upper moons after Yutaro had passed away, Doma and Akaza have a interaction. We kind of get that confirmation that Akaza hates Doma with his entire soul. Kokushibo and Doma basically go on to say, if you want, or if you have a problem with us being the strongest, you could blood battle us, right? This is where the issue comes in, and this is where the narrative comes in that Doma is just outright stronger than Akaza. Akaza hates Doma, and the only time he's ever talked back to Muzan, Akaza's one of the most loyal upper moons and does what he's supposed to. The only time he's ever talked back to Muzan is when Doma took his spot. Obviously, y'all are kind of catching up, right? Why wouldn't Akaza want to take even the most slitherish chance of beating Doma if he couldn't do it at all? He had no hope of doing it at all. 0% chance.
So like, let's say Akaza had a 30% chance, or he thought he had a 30% chance to beat Doma. He doesn't even consider it. Like, he never says, you know what, I'm gonna challenge Doma, this, that, or the other. He never even considers it after Doma just says right in front of him and Kokushibo that, like, oh yeah, Akaza's weaker than me. And Akaza just never even considers like fighting Doma. It's never even a possibility that crosses his mind. And Muzan elevating Doma past Akaza and Akaza outright back-talking Muzan for this. Keep in mind, Muzan likes Akaza and is stated to not like Doma, and in Muzan's opinion, he still thought it was enough to elevate Doma an entire rank above Akaza, right? So narratively, it kind of just paints this picture that Doma should just be this tier above Akaza. Now that's where it gets kind of weird, where people are like, okay, so how is he stronger than Akaza? And it doesn't necessarily mean he has to be better in everything, but if Akaza was just as fast as Doma or faster and Doma just had hacks to deal with him, it doesn't really make sense, because Akaza would just outspeed him before those abilities go off and would just beat him up, you know? So I think it should give us some scope of Doma's physical abilities, as well as him having abilities like his cryokinesis, his Buddha, that would just surpass Akaza. So bare minimum, he's just Akaza +1, but I think it's more likely that he's just an entire tier above someone like Akaza.
And one thing that I think people, you know, are probably going to have a problem with, this isn't Shinobu. This is not Shinobu, guys. Doma is not going to hold big against a real threat. reason why we're saying this is because Doma against Shinobu gets a good grasp of her speed, so he knows that she's not a real threat to him. Of course, that's also because she can't behead him in general. With the circumstances that he'll have against Sanemi, with him seeing Sanemi's speed and how much of a threat he is, he'll know that Sanemi has the capabilities to be able to kill him, so he'll take him seriously as a real threat. He won't be holding back.
We know Doma still has loyalty to Muzan. He wants to impress Muzan. He has a will to survive, at least. He's not going to just let himself die easily. Otherwise, Muzan really has no point in promoting him if he was just going to die to someone that was even close to his power level. It just kind of doesn't make sense. And, like, he's never held back in character against someone without knowing their strength, okay? He sees Shinobu, he perception blitzes her, then he goes to holding back. He sees Inosuke's speed when he comes in to save Kano, then he starts holding back, right? He clearly gets a gauge of their strength before he starts holding back. And because Sanemi's so dangerous, we don't really see him holding back enough to where he's just going to get, blitz GG off rip because he's holding back. I don't think that's implied at all. I think that's pretty disingenuous. So I don't really think that's going to be a factor here in the fight at all.
Yeah, and it's pretty consistent when you go to Kano and Inosuke, where he does blitz both of them in two different instances. He takes Kano's sword before she even notices, and takes Inosuke's hat before he notices. It's kind of clear that he's just holding back against them after that point. He can just do these things for fun.
Yeah. So then it kind of comes down to how close is Sanemi to Doma levels and how close is Doma to Kokushibo? And we really don't have any concrete answers for any of this. One way you could highball Sanemi is he reacted to Kokushibo. Now, he's in base here, and he either gets blitzed or really massively outpaced right after this, but he is reacting on panel. And this is a breathing form, which is a higher level than Akaza was able to react to, right? Because Akaza gets perception blitzed, so that could give us some scope to say maybe base Sanemi has some reaction tiers a little bit above someone like Akaza, but even then it's shaky because Akaza's combat speed and like attack speed might just be faster than his reaction speed, because he specifically amps his attack speed with his compass. So even that highball interpretation is shaky, but even if you do want to do that and say Sanemi's like around Akaza level in base, give him the mark. Is that enough of a jump to get to Doma levels, which just should be a whole tier above Akaza? And where it gets weird is you also have to account the blood, but is that going to come into play long enough before Doma kills him, right? So it's like, okay, he has Morichi blood, which can nerf Doma, but Doma can also nerf him with the, ice in the air. And Doma's a long-range fighter. He has, like, the twin princesses or whatever that could blow cold air. He can just spawn ice crystals on you. He has a lot of long-range abilities to keep Sanemi at a distance. And me and Null kind of think it's a little bit too much to say he's so fast that he could just outpace Doma like severely or blitz him severely to cut off his head. Like, he has the stats we think to keep up with someone like Doma, but because Doma can fight at a long range, he has infinite stamina because he's a demon, and the fact that Sanemi's gonna have to get up close and personal and like blitz or massively outpace him to behead him, it kind of is just like, that's a little bit too much in our opinions to just get him outright over Doma.
Yeah, Sanemi desperately needs to have the speed to be able to kill Doma before he's able to get any of his gimmicks off, because all of his gimmicks are really bad for any Demon Slayer. It doesn't matter who it is, but any Demon Slayer. Especially when you think about, again, like he said, his infinite stamina and his blood demon arts, because we still haven't even spoken about the Buddha. The Buddha, honestly,
if the Buddha comes out, it's just over. Sanemi loses. It's over. The fight is done.
Because, mind you, we see a nerfed version of the Buddha due to him being poisoned.
That's Doma at his most desperate, and the fan book lists this Buddha as a major ability, so it's probably one of his, stronger overall abilities that he could use. If he, launches the Buddha, which is probably rivaling his physicals or just outright superior since it's one of his best techniques, and then he's also, sending out long-range attacks at Sanemi, I feel like Sanemi's just going to get overwhelmed before he could really make any significant progress, and is just going to get wore down and lose the fight. It's hard to say definitively that Doma is above Mark Sonomy because, like I said, it is so vague, but we do have the narrative that he is a tier above Akaza. So I guess it also kind of depends, okay, how close do you think Sonomy is to Giyu? How close do you think he is to Guillaume? Do you think he's somewhere in between? Even if he scales close somewhere physically to Doma, that's not going to be enough to beat a demon. Mark Giyu is just equal with Akaza, right? But he can't beat him because he's a demon. He's going to run out of stamina eventually. So even if he has the physicals to be equal with someone like Doma, we just don't really see him getting it over on him. So, I mean, Sonomy does really well here in the castle. You know, he takes out Kaigaku pretty easily. Nakame isn't going to be any trouble. There's pretty much no scenario where he loses to Akaza, and generally we favor Doma in the final fight.
No, he does really good in this run. It's just like Doma, it's not like he's getting annihilated. He's still definitely putting up more of a fight than Shinobu did.
Yeah, y'all let us know in the comments if you think we got anything wrong. What do you think? Do you think Sonomy goes 0-4? Do you think Sonomy goes 1-3? I want to thank Noel for being on the video. I'm going to link his channel, and peace.
Peace.